crowd is going wild. A brand new season, that championship style. Big plays are coming, the rivalry's real. Get ready for that Pigskin Frenzy feel. It's college football, yeah, you know the deal. This is Pigskin Frenzy.
Last round of spring outlooks. I know that it's been kind of a ride. We've had, 10 episodes of spring outlooks, and now we're finally here at the last one. And ending our first phase of spring football. We'll go to our spring results next week. But man, like I said, we started breaking them down into editions. Last one on Tuesday was New Coaches Edition. Go back and watch that one. That was awesome. We got an interesting one because each of these teams are from each Power 4 conference. One from the SEC, one from the Big Ten, one from the ACC, and one from the Big 12. It's can they keep the momentum going? And I'm very, very intrigued for this episode and very excited. And we got, for the last episode, for our Spring Outlook episode, we got Trent back. So we're so excited. We're pumped. We're fired up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. It's cloudy, but it doesn't matter. It does not matter if it's cloudy in the back. It's still beautiful outside. I'm Joel Norris, and whether you're watching on YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, Apple, if you're listening on there, if you're watching us on True Voice Digital, guys, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Thursday to just sit back, watch and listen to some college football coverage and some spring football coverage presented by us. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, just follow on there and share around there with others. Also, like I said, catch us on True Voice Digital, inspiring faith and unfiltered analysis from other shows, including this one right here. So, guys, Instagram, and TikTok is at Pigskin_Frenzy. Follow, like the pages there. You're going to get episode updates and wild takes from the prodigy of college football himself. And our website is www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Guys, we are super fired up to have Trent Ritchie back with us, and we are ready for some more spring outlooks, man. Trent, what's going on, dude? How are you?
Nothing much. I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to be on our spring outlooks again and excited for the latest edition, so I'm ready to go.
Absolutely, man. I know, like I said, our final spring outlook, and I know that we are, like I said, kind of breaking them down into editions now, and this one's an intriguing one. I know you said these teams, like before we were off air, you were saying these teams are kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
And they're coming off of great years. Each of them coming off of great years last year.
Big years.
And then huge years. Now is a perfect time to do a spring outlook because you're like, okay, can they keep the momentum going, right? So I think it's very intriguing to see. We got one from the SEC, one from the Big 12, one from the Big 10, and one from the ACC. So we're going to start off with the SEC first, and we're going to kick it off with Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt coming off of a 10-win year. I mean, Vanderbilt winning 10 games. A lot of people did not see that coming. But when you have a quarterback like Diego Pavia, who was a Heisman finalist last year, throwing for near 30 touchdowns, right? Of course you're probably going to win 10 games. They played a lot of close games, including Bama, Texas, you name it. They had a lot of close calls and a lot of close games. Missouri, epic win against Missouri. Missouri was a good team last year.
Down to the wire, too.
It's down to the wire. Literally a Hail Mary, short of the goal line, ended up winning the ball game. Very close, but Vanderbilt pulled it out. They played a interim bump-minded Auburn, and that was a huge game there. They blew their rival out in Tennessee. Had an excellent season. Now, Iowa, like I mentioned Iowa just a minute ago, and we're going to talk about Iowa here in a little bit, but Iowa, they lost that game to Iowa in the bowl game. But look, not the best way to end their season, obviously, but I will say this, for Vanderbilt, the regular season was pretty solid. Like I said, 10 wins, strong year. Can they keep that momentum going with Clark Lee? Before Diego Pavia got there, it was up and down. But now, post-Pavia, and during the Pavia reign, it was exciting and it was storybook. Now it's post-Pavia. Can they keep it going? Now, high school recruiting, they kind of did well in. Jerry Curtis coming into the fold. That hometown kid from Nashville was committed to Georgia originally. They made him a strong offer that he couldn't refuse, decided to flip and go and sign with Vanderbilt. Nashville and Vanderbilt, anchor down. They're going berserk because they landed a 5-star quarterback in their midst. So a lot of things happening in Vanderbilt recruiting wise. It's very exciting for them. Facilities are being upgraded as well. So a lot of things are going good for Vanderbilt in that realm. However, when I say keep the momentum going, can they keep the momentum going? There's a lot of you can look at it and you look at the roster on paper and you look at the spring practices and you're thinking, okay, yeah, maybe there is room we can improve, right? Maybe there's room for regression and then try to bounce back next year. Maybe they'll shock everybody and go 10 wins this year. Who knows? But right now you look at it and you're thinking, yeah, there could be some regression, even though there's a lot of believers, me included, in Clark Lee. So, Trent, I'm going to start with you. What is exciting to you about Vanderbilt, and what is interesting for you in terms of, how they're going to be this spring, and what's got you excited about Vanderbilt this spring, and what's your spring outlook on them?
So, with Vanderbilt, it's a little bit of a nuanced case for me, because I'm still excited about what Vanderbilt has to offer as a program, especially under Clark Lee. But I see this year as being a bit of a learning moment for them. I think that they are coming off, some great years with Pavia, threw 29 touchdowns this year, 3,500 yards. He even limited the turnovers this year. He was down to 8 interceptions, 70% completion. He was really the whole package for them. And honestly, with an offensive line that for the most part had him running for his life for a majority of the year, I think that is something to behold if you're a team like Vanderbilt, who really used to be the punching bag of the SEC. I remember the days when that was your guaranteed win in the SEC, and the rest of these games were just as tough as they are now. But I think that having Vanderbilt on the rise as a program in this way is a great thing to see. However, for the year, I see the potential, again, for a bit of a down year. I think they're really, really young, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They got a couple graduates coming back on the defensive side of the ball. But I think ultimately what it's going to come down to is really one question, not three. Is Jared Curtis going to live up to what Pavia brought to Vanderbilt? And I think, especially for a young kid, that's a lot to expect. I mean, I get he's hometown. His flip of commitment was a huge deal for Vanderbilt fans, especially those who were familiar with him growing up in the area and familiar with him in high school. I think a lot of the local fans are really, really excited for what he has in store for that program and for that offense. But I think, the SEC is just, it's the Badlands, man. There is not a whole lot of really easy wins that you're going to get in there. And I think especially with the way that Vanderbilt's schedule is looking this year, I just don't see them being able to really make a playoff run of any kind. But you know what? I think a great bowl win could set them right under the Jared Curtis era, and I'm excited to see what they've got.
100%, man. I think the main focal point for me is, I think if you want to kick it off with my spring outlook, number one, I would say the quarterbacks, but Jared Curtis obviously probably is the forefront. They say there is a quarterback battle. Blaise Berowitz is coming back.
Fair.
I think Curtis is the favorite to land the job. I would think he would land the job and start.
Yeah.
But I don't want to count out Blaise Berowitz just yet, because he did come in to some games last year and played behind Pavia, and out of the development of the offense, right, he's got the slightly, not maybe a whole lot, but slightly the most experience. But I think the number one key, whoever wins the battle, is can they pick up the offense and pick it up quick, right? So for both of them, because they're both going to be kind of green and brand new, right? So can they pick up the offense quickly? That's number one in the quarterback battle, and who's going to take that leap? I would think Jared Curtis, but let's see on that. Number two, the offensive line. I think that's probably more of the primary concern also in the trenches. I think they're young, especially depth-wise they're young. I think I want to see how well they're going to build the O-line in the spring heading into the fall. I think that's the number 2 thing for me for Vanderbilt. I think secondary concerns as well is my third and final thing. Not really the whole defense. They do have, like I said, Jordan Matthews there as well, and he's going to be good. But other than him, who's going to take up that step for Vanderbilt in the safety spot, in the secondary
100%.
spot for Vanderbilt? I think that's it. Really my third and final thing for Vanderbilt is the secondary. I also think if you want to add a 3B to it, right? Like a 3A, 3B, 3B, because I just thought about it in my head just now. They are young, yes, especially on offense, mainly. They're young. Defensively, they have some age to them. Offensively, especially on the O-line, they're younger. I want to see depth and how they are going to build their depth up. They got talent. Don't get me wrong. Vanderbilt's got talent, but how are they going to build it up? How are they going to develop it and add more to their depth, right, on their roster? I want to see that. I think that's a 3B for me. So
Absolutely.
That's really my spring outlooks for Vanderbilt, honestly. I mean, their spring game is April 18th. Again, I say that when they talk about their spring games, everybody's spring game's on the 18th for some reason. That's guys, just pinpoint that. April 18th is the ultimate spring game day, I guess. But April 18th is their spring game. So excited to see what's going to happen there. I mean, number 1 for me, quarterback battle. I mean, number 2, offensive line. And then kind of a 3A, 3B. 3A would be the secondary and who's going to step up there. And then 3B would be the depth of the team overall. I think they're fairly young, but it would not shock me if they brought the fight to some teams this year still.
Yeah.
Clark Lee is an excellent head coach. I think that Vanderbilt's got a really strong shot at maybe regressing, yes, but also still having that heart and will to compete in games. So it would not shock me at all. Any more final thoughts on Vanderbilt? I know we'll probably ask it at the end of the episode as well, but any more final thoughts on Vanderbilt before we move on?
I think to touch on your point about Clark Lee, I think the real physical and mental edge that he brings to the team is something really important to monitor for this year, because I think we've really only seen that properly flourish under Pavia and under the abilities that he had available to him at the quarterback position. But I'm wondering if, that starts to rub off a bit, especially on the trenches, especially when you got, new offensive linemen coming in. You got Gus Corsair at center. That's been a really big one that they've talked about quite a bit internally, and a lot of the fans are real big on him and excited to bring him in there. He's a 4-star. It's a great acquisition. He's a real, hard-nosed guy, and I'm excited to see what he's got. And I think that if you're able to make it more of a team identity, less of, a quarterback coach tandem, but more of a team identity itself, I could see Jared Curtis really having a lot of success. I look at this team as sort of, in terms of the level at which they're at, I would look at them a lot as like Arkansas last year. I think Arkansas really played with the right grit and tenacity to win a lot of big games, but they just didn't have the talent or the maturity to match that. And I think that that's something that, if Vanderbilt has a talent edge over a team like what we saw out of Arkansas last year, and they're really able to keep that physical and mental tenacity that you see Clark Lee bringing to the table every single day, and it really starts to rub off on the team as a whole. I'm wondering if that could actually translate into wins, and if we could see a really sneaky, 9-4 Vanderbilt team, or even if they could match their 10-win total from last year. I think that would be, an exceptional accomplishment for them, and I think that would be showing that they as a program are no longer, the punching bag of the SEC. They're actually on the rise, and it was not just because of Pavia.
Absolutely. Is it going to be a 2-year wonder, or is it going to be a consistent, let's move it along here thing? Can they keep up the momentum? Like with that, like this episode, like this is our edition. Can they keep the momentum going edition? That's the right word. I've been trying to find the word for it, guys. So that's the right word for it. Can they keep the momentum going? That's the wholeheartedly, I agree with you, man. So that's good. Vanderbilt, spring game on April 18th. We'll have our spring results on them in a few weeks, most likely in a month, May, first week of May. So we're excited to see what Vanderbilt brings to the table. That was the team out of the SEC. We got 3 other teams from each of the Power 4 conference, and we're going to go into the ACC really quick and talk about the Virginia Cavaliers. The Virginia Cavaliers, and I said in my, I think it was my media days. I think my ACC media days recap this last July, I said they need to figure it out. And when I mean figure it out, Virginia needs to find a way to win at least 6 to 7 games, be bowl eligible. That could probably save the tenure of Tony Elliott.
Yep.
And to my surprise, they're 5-0, undefeated, 6-0 mid-season. And I'm like, what happened here? They bring in Chandler Morris. By the way, my number 2 Frenzy top 50 game of the 2025 college football season was Florida State, Virginia. Week 5, excellent game. You're thinking, dude, that's your highest rated Week 5 game on top of everything else. Possibly, yeah, because of how exciting it was. And not only that, Virginia coming back into the fold and trying to compete for an ACC title and compete for a playoff spot eventually early on in the season. And Florida State was ranked at that time. That's a huge upset. No one thought that after going to beat Alabama Week 1, they turn around in Week 5 and lose Virginia. So it started the downfall of one season, and it rose and it ascended one team season. So that's why it was so good. And Virginia ended up just going and rolling and winning. They did drop. I think they dropped to Louisville, I believe, in one last game last year.
Yep.
That was one loss, and then they had another loss later in the season, and they were a 2-loss team, but they were still in it. They win the ACC championship. They're in. Unfortunately, could not get the job done in the ACC championship game.
Nope.
They go on to the Gator Bowl, beat Mizzou, and win. Doesn't matter. They had a 10-win year. I mean,
lost to Mizzou.
Literally, I'm at a loss for words talking about it because it literally, they exceeded the expectations. All I said was win 6 games. Not only did they save his job, or he saved his job and he saved his position as head coach there, he probably set them up with even more confidence going into this year. Like, okay, how can you? I mean, it may be tough to follow it up, but we're starting to trust you a little bit more. We're starting to believe in you a little bit more. You exceeded the expectations that a lot of people set out for you. They did. Now, going into the spring, quarterback's going to be a thing. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. And for Virginia, what I want to see is if they can keep the momentum going is they brought in some talent to the portal. And what I mean by that is they do have some talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball, that you look at and you're like, okay, this team, they may be quietly, now nobody's really talking about them still again, but quietly they may be a team that, okay, we got to pay attention to on our schedule. So to kick things off, and I'll start with you in here in a little bit, or leave it to you here in a little bit, to kick off things for my spring outlook for Virginia. Number one thing that I want to see for Virginia is obviously, and a lot of people are going to say, obvious probably, but who's going to win the quarterback battle for Virginia? Who's going to take that leap? It's a very intriguing quarterback battle. Chandler Morris not coming back, but you have Eli Holston coming from Pitt, which I probably had a feeling he was going to enter the portal anyway. He goes to Virginia, and then to our surprise, the quarterback that Virginia competed against in the Gator Bowl ends up transferring, and Bo Pribula from Missouri, and he ends up at Virginia. So it's like, oh wow, all right. Bo Pribula wasn't a name that I thought was going to enter the portal. I thought he was going to stay at Mizzou. So to my surprise, he ends up going. So who's going to take that leap? That's what I want to see. Who's going to take that leap in the portal, or not in the portal, in the quarterback battle, and who's going to possibly further themselves in that battle? If you had to place money on it, a lot of people are going to probably say, okay, Elliott probably wants a more of a mobile type quarterback. Maybe Bo Pribula will probably be that best guess, but we'll see what happens. Who knows? We're not Tony Elliott. We're not him, so we don't know. So number one, quarterback battle between Pribula and Holston. Who's going to take that leap there? Number 2 for me, Trent, would be the running backs.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the primary back there? They did bring in Peyton Lewis from Tennessee. That's a good one there. They have Xavier Brown still there as well. Who's going to be the primary back? Is it going to be Lewis? Is it going to be Brown? I think offensive line is pretty much solid. They have a veteran presence there on the O-line. So all it needs to do is to try to balance that out with the run game. protect the ball. I think run blocking is a key there as well. So if they can run block well, who's going to be the primary back? I think it's either going to be Lewis or Brown. Two good ones. Curious to see how the running game is going to be bolstered there and who's going to be the primary back there. Third and final thing for me, I would like to see, honestly, let me get my notes here as well. Excuse me. I want to see, and this is kind of all really, I'm going to change it up on the fly because I thought about this one too. I was going to go with receivers, but their receiver in Corey is pretty slightly strong, underratedly strong. I'm going to go with D-line. I was battling it in my head, all my notes still, and in my head, D-line or receiver. So let's talk about D-line instead. So my third and final thing is who's going to step up on the D-line as well. I think, you got Fisher K-Mac as their returning edge rusher. He was special in 2025. I wouldn't say he's, out of this. He didn't do out of this world numbers, but he did pretty well enough for that defensive line and was pretty solid on the edge. Besides him, who's going to step up on the D-line? I think that's a big thing for me for Virginia, and I'm curious to see who will step up on the defensive front of things for the Cavaliers. So those are really my three things that I want to see from their spring outlooks. Number one, the quarterback battle. Who's going to take that leap? Who's going to be the primary back is my number two one for them in the running game. And then number three, the bolstered defensive line. Who's going to step up for them on the defensive line for the Virginia Cavaliers? That's my third and final thing for Virginia. Trent, the floor is yours. I know that Virginia is an interesting topic for a lot of spectators in this sport. What are you excited to see from Virginia this spring?
So, to issue a quick correction, Virginia did end up beating Missouri, not the other way around. So I had to issue a quick correction on that one real quick. But
did I say that Mizzou won?
No, you said it correct. You said Virginia won, and I corrected you and said Mizzou won. That is not true. Virginia did end up winning that. I believe it was 14-6, if I'm not correct, or 13-7, somewhere in there. It was a pretty low scoring game. Virginia kind of separated towards the end, from what I remember. But talking about Virginia specifically, I think Virginia is a real question mark for me. I kind of can't say either way. We only have 1 year of Tony Elliott really taking the reins and owning this role as the Cavaliers head coach. So I'm not really sure how to judge them properly. I know that Chandler Morris is going to be missed. He was the real veteran presence of that team. His game management was spot on. I could write you a whole essay on how they beat Florida State and the way he was able to really take the lead on that game on a team that nobody really thought they were going to beat, especially with FSU coming out of Alabama looking really confident. Gus Malzahn really owning that offensive scheme. I thought that for sure we were going to see Virginia kind of take the step back and really show themselves as a bowl level team, but they really didn't do that. They really never took a step back until that final game against Duke. They really hung in there all year. I think Morris and Elliott really led the way and showed that, in today's NIL, a QB coach tandem that really, rocks and has the kind of sync that you need is going to take you a long way. The rest of the pieces need to fall in place, though, and that is where I think towards the end of the year, especially versus Duke, you saw Virginia really get exposed as a team that was not quite ready for that spotlight yet. They weren't there. The ACC was not considered a particularly tough conference as is, and I think for them to lose to a team that already had 5 losses in Duke and was already really considered dead until you got a miraculous chance at the conference championship via tiebreaker, which I think unfortunately Miami should have been there and should have proven why they were supposed to be in the playoffs in the first place, especially seeing as to how far they made it. But that's the way it is in the ACC. But I think seeing that gave me a cause for pause, and I really see potential with Virginia, especially because I think Tony Elliott really has a kind of swagger to him, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and the way he just calls really, really gutsy play calls towards the end of the game. A lot of deep balls, a lot of trust in his quarterback. I could see, honestly, I would probably say Prebula gets the start just off of, kind of first glance. I think Prebula has a lot of mobility. He is a little bit injury prone, and I think that's probably why they went ahead and grabbed Eli Holstein as well, just in case you have issues with Prebula not being able to get on the field, due to injuries Hayes or, whatever have you. I think it's good to have those two in the building together, but I think Prbula, to me, is the clear starter, and I want to see how Tony Elliott takes advantage of someone who's got a little bit more of a scrambling ability. He's a little bit more mobile. He can kind of improvise a little bit more than Chandler Morris could. I could see potential for a good tandem forming there, but I still think looking around that team, I don't see a market improvement with Virginia. I think they're still kind of the same squad that we saw last year, and I think in some ways that can be good for cohesion, and in some ways, they lost to Duke in the championship game. It clearly wasn't enough, and I think that in order to get to that place where you are making playoff games, especially in the ACC where Miami really is kind of owning that conference right now, I wonder if that's going to be enough.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where you look and you're thinking, will it be, right? Like we keep saying, can they keep that momentum going, right? I get it, 100%. I mean, I believe that there are certain areas where they probably need to improve their depth on. I think, but if you look at it on paper, you're like, okay, this team may not be all that bad. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The sky's the limit. The sky could be the limit for them. I know I said that about Houston as well, but Houston may be in a better position right now. Maybe.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are.
The sky could be the limit, right? For Virginia in the ACC. We'll see. We'll just have to see, right? So
I really like Tony Elliott. I think that's kind of my saving grace for them, even though I'm a little bit skeptical of the roster itself, just because, you know what? To be fair, I'm not an ACC guy. I probably have not done enough research on Virginia, and I think that's something I need to look at, especially considering how big of a player they were for a lot of last year. But you know what? Every game I've really seen from a play caller's perspective, a certain intellectual thought in his late game decision making that really I got a lot of confidence in the guy. I mean, again, look at the end of that FSU game. They just owned it. Even the defensive side of the ball, they locked in. They did not allow Gus Malzahn to go crazy on them, and they did not allow Florida State to really cement the kind of talent that we thought they initially had, especially coming off of a big win like Bama. The end of that game alone should really make people take a good look at Tony Elliott and his play calling, and especially his ability to really resonate with players and be that player's coach that people are looking for in Virginia.
100%, man. Their spring game, anybody want to guess the date? Their spring game is April 18th.
Not a hard guess, huh?
Not a hard guess, guys. April 18th is their spring game. A lot of spring games on April 18th. Spring games April 18th. We're excited to see what they're going to do in their spring, and we will have spring results on them within the next few weeks. Guys, 2 more teams, and we're going to go out to the Big Ten. Slap dab in the middle of the Big Ten. Slap dab in the middle of the United States. Iowa. And we are going to talk about the Hawkeyes because they had a very interesting year last year as well. Probably 2 results, maybe. And if they would have gone their way, probably we would be singing a different tune about Iowa. Probably, maybe in the hunt for a playoff spot. Maybe. I'm just going to throw that out there. No, for real. They were probably in the hunt for a playoff spot if 2 results gone that way, okay? Shoulda, woulda, coulda. I get that. But still, they were quietly, and I will say this, and I'll keep saying this too, they get underappreciated for the season they had last year. A lot of people I think, were underappreciative of Iowa. They kind of got, okay, it's Iowa. Look, they had a good year last year, and a lot of people didn't really kind of take note of that. So I'm just going to say that Iowa, quietly good, or I wouldn't say quietly good. I will say very good year last year. Not phenomenal, not bad, just a good year. And a lot of people kind of, were just like, dusting him off and brushing him off. And I'm like, I would still kind of celebrate the accomplishment of, hey, they were close to a 10-win year. Close to it. 1 game away. If a result would have gone their way, 10 wins.
100%.
Right? So, coming off of a 9-4 season, and they ended in a good bowl, a ReliaQuest Bowl, right? They played the Vanderbilt ReliaQuest Bowl. They won the game and had a good year. Mark Gronowski, going to be sorely missed. He was a really big part of their offense as well. I think the big part of Iowa, and what is interesting about Iowa, is they do have slightly slightly of a roster turnover. I'm not going to say phenomenal, like phenomenal, like it's overwhelming, but they took a hit in some major areas going into the spring. So for Iowa, for me, like Gronowski, quarterback is a big thing. We got to see who wins it. Offensively, you do get receivers coming in like Evan James to add depth to that receiving room. Other than that, I kind of want to see what's going on there. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But the line, and I mean defensive line, is in need of a rebuild as well. So there's a lot of factors that you look in for Iowa in their spring and heading into the fall that, okay, there's some things that need to be addressed going into this year if we want to keep up the momentum, and can they keep the momentum going? So for me, my spring outlook on them, and then we'll send it over to Trent's way. Number one is the quarterback battle. Who's going to take that leap? I know we have some quarterback battle talk here. Trust me, in a minute, there's no disputing who the quarterback is when we talk about the other team in a minute.
Yep.
I will say right now for this one, who's going to be the quarterback for Iowa and who's going to take that leap in that battle? You got two guys, Jeremy Hecklinski, and you also got Hank Brown. Both guys coming in there. And who's going to be and take that leap in the quarterback battle between those two guys? I can see Hank Brown making a run for his money. We'll see what happens. I would expect him to be the favorite. We will see, though. Hecklinski can probably give Hank Brown a run for his money, but I would probably put the money on Brown. But I want to see who's going to take that leap in the battle. That's number one. Number two, defensive line rebuild is a must. You got to be physical in the trenches, especially on the defensive line. Who and how are they going to bolster it up in the fall in the spring, heading into the fall? They have guys like Aaron Graves and Jonah Pace there that can build up, right? Because they lost pretty much all four starting players from 2025 on that line. So that's a huge rebuild.
Yeah.
How are they going to build it up, right? So that's what we're going to try to figure it out for Kirk Fruentz's defense going in the Big Ten in 2026. So defensive line rebuild. How are they going to get that going in the spring heading into the fall? And then finally, last but not least, their receiving room, their core. They get guys like Evan James added to the depth. Besides him, who's going to step up in that receiving core for the Iowa Hawkeyes? I know you're like, okay, we got to figure out the quarterback first. We're going to figure it out. Iowa's going to figure it out. But you also got to figure out, all right, you got that part situated. Who are you going to throw to, right? So what's the depth of the receiving core looking like, and who's going to step up at the receiving core for Iowa heading in to the 2026 season? So that's really my three and my takeaways and my spring outlook for Iowa, for the Hawkeyes. Interested to see what you got to say for them, Trent. What do you think about Iowa, and how are you feeling about them this spring?
So here's the thing. When you have Kirk Ferentz, who, in all due fairness, I mean, he's the all-time winningest Big Ten coach. I think that is a big deal, and I think especially coming off last year where, I mean, saw it all over my socials, the best 9-4 team. They really were close, and I think a lot of people really valued them, especially going into that bowl game at Reoccurring against Vanderbilt, because of what they saw in that game versus Oregon. Playing those night games in Iowa has just become a trap game in the Big Ten. You just know those night games in Iowa, it is a really rough go of it. It's always been that way, especially in recent years. You've had a lot of these, key players in the Big Ten. You go down versus Iowa, you're not making the playoffs. It is what it is. They seem to be a giant killer in that division. And honestly, I have a lot of faith in Iowa coming into this year. I do think the quarterback battle is my biggest hesitation with them. I'm not really, I believe you said Hecklinski. He'll probably end up being the starter if I had to guess, because I believe, if I'm not correct, he was on the team last year and was in heavy competition with Gronowski for that starting spot, at least initially. And so I would figure, especially considering the fact that he was in that battle last year, he'll probably end up taking seniority and go ahead and grab that spot this year. But really, as much as Gronowski made an impact, and he certainly did, it's never been about the QB with Iowa. It's never been really about the offense with Iowa. It's always just been, they are incredibly gritty as a culture. They are really hard. They got a good home field advantage that again, has really tripped up a lot of the giants of the Big Ten. And I think ultimately their coaching and Kirk Ferentz is stellar. It really is. I think they're a very undervalued asset going into this year. I think a lot of people really need, to clean their glasses and take a good look at Iowa, because I think you've got a program there that is really something to behold. And I think if you've got a team this year, especially, I really focus on USC and Ohio State. I think those two are kind of due for a down year. I think one of them is going to succeed and the other is going to maybe trip up and have a hard time. I think Oregon's pretty much a lock, especially getting Dante Moore back. I think Michigan is going to be the surprise of the league this year, especially, with their changes at head coach. I think if you are able to see one of those teams kind of slip out of the big picture, but the Big Ten still maintains the weight that it has had the past 2 years, with Indiana and Oregon having so much success, I wonder, we've had five SEC teams. I've seen crazier things than the possibility of having, 5 Big Ten teams. And if that is something that happens this year, I would really keep a keen eye on Iowa and see, could they be a part of the playoff conversation going forward?
Absolutely. Going to be very interesting to see. Iowa, like I said, if they can keep that momentum going, all right, and keep it up, they may be a team that you look out for and you're like, okay, we're back in this position this year, but they have some of those key wins under their belt, right?
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to see what happens with Iowa. Their spring game is April 25th. Another date, right? A new date for a spring game, guys. April 25th is their spring game. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in Iowa City for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Very curious to see what's going to happen for Iowa. Last but not least, and then we'll wrap up. You're from here. So, I mean, you probably already know, and you're probably excited about this one.
I am. This is the one.
Brent Brennan did really well last
He
year.
did.
He did really well for the Wildcats of Arizona. They had a season where the first season was kind of a down year. Okay, expected. Rebuild year, right? You're going, new fresh coach going in. Jed Fish goes to Washington. Get that going, and you're like, okay, right? New coach. Let's see how it plays out. Let's see what's going down. I believe it was a 5-7 first year, right? They didn't do well. Then the second year, they're like, okay, we're gonna try to build off that, right? And try to get some more momentum going in and try to rebound. They did. They won games that a lot of people, we weren't expecting Arizona to win, and they did well, surprisingly. Brent Brennan had a heck of a second year, and a lot of people are wondering now, okay, can Arizona quietly maybe step up to the plate and challenge a Texas Tech, challenge a BYU, get up there and challenge maybe if Houston is on the rise as well, challenge at Houston. Can they do that? I think that's what a lot of people are trying to figure out right now with Arizona. We're curious. Yeah. We're fired up just to see what's going to happen with Arizona going in. And I'll just say it since, we'll see it. Their spring game's April 25th as well. Wow, it's 25th, right? April 25th is Arizona's spring game. Curious to see what happens. Had a good year last year. Now, Trent, I'm going to start with you because you know very well about the Arizona Wildcats. Let's talk about them, man. What are you excited to see about their spring? Brent Brennan entering his third year there. What are you looking forward to them, or what are you looking forward to seeing from them this spring? And how are you feeling about the Arizona Wildcats?
So, when it comes to my Cats, there's always a story with them. They've always got a story behind where we're at now. I think, you kind of went over that first year. It was a rebuild year. But you know what? It honestly wasn't. We had T-Mac. We had Fafita. We were ready to really make a splash, especially, you know what? I got no love lost for Jed Fish. I think he should have went ahead and stayed with Arizona, especially judging the fact that Washington has gotten nowhere closer than Arizona did under him to really making the playoffs. I expected more from Brennan out of that first year. I think that there was a team with enough veteran leadership to where if you provided the environment of stability that Jed Fish did in the offensive schemes that we saw out of Jed Fish, which were very high level. You're coming off of, the Belichick coaching tree. I saw a lot of really good potential there, and it wasn't, the defense was really the weak part of the team, and obviously so. I mean, coming out of New Mexico, letting them score 28 on our defense was really like, wow, okay, we're going to have a hard time in the Big 12 this year with this defense, but you know what? At least we can outscore them. And that was not present that year. And I think seeing that, towards the end of that year, we had a blowout loss over 50 points to UCF. I believe the final score was 63-12 or 65-12. It was a really embarrassing showing. And I thought for sure, you know what? Brennan will just kind of be a one-year wonder. We'll get him out of the building. We'll start clean. Fafita will probably leave, unfortunately. There was already buzz about him going into the transfer portal. And then came this year. And wow. This year was unexpected to many of us in Tucson. I think I speak for a lot of Cat fans saying that was not a season anyone expected. I think Brennan came out really motivated, really focused. I think he felt very blessed to have kept Fafita after the year that they had, and the fact that Fafita has really become somewhat of an icon in the Tucson area. I mean, I go to a barbershop, he goes to the same one. He's really well connected in the area. A lot of people really have a lot of faith in what Fafita brings to the table, even at, a small stature. I believe he's 5'8", if I'm not correct, but he throws a ball like nobody's business. He's got a gun. He really has great vision downfield. He makes a lot of great decisions, cut down on his turnovers this year big time. I think that was a marked improvement that we were really looking forward to as a community, and to see us be able, to be in competition towards the late year. I mean, we had BYU on the ropes, 10 points up with, a couple minutes left in the fourth, and unfortunately our discipline wasn't there, and we let that get ahead of us. And I think after that, we lose one to Houston, and then unfortunately towards the end of the year, we kind of gave up a dumb one to SMU. And I think in that bowl game, maybe bowl games don't have the same effect anymore, but to us it did. We needed that win to cement the momentum we had going into this year. Now, in terms of this year, 2 words: Noah Fafita. I think ultimately at the end of the day, him coming back as a senior with the kind of poise that he brought from last year, I mean, doing really well, distributing the ball. I mean, had Chris Hudson, Ishmael Mahdi, and Kedrick Riscano out of the backfield, a great tandem. We got our shifty, kind of smaller back in Ishmael Mahdi, unfortunately losing him this year. And then we got our big power back, Kedrick Riscano. He was great on, 3rd and goal. He's coming back this year. He's probably going to be taking that main, power back role from Ishmael Mahdi. I'm excited to see that. Our offensive line definitely needed a little work, and I think last year they really performed above the standards I would have had for them going into that year. Fafita having 3,200 passing yards, 29 TDs, and 6 interceptions. He was sitting at about a 71.2 QBR. Awesome. That's exactly what we need out of a leader. That's exactly what you need off of a quarterback, especially in the Big 12, where quarterback competition has become such a big deal. We got Texas Tech, spilling the bag for Sorsby. We got Sam Levitt, unfortunately he left, but, he was a big player within the past couple of years, taking ASU to that bowl game, in the playoffs versus Texas. I see a lot of potential for a big run from them, but ultimately this season is really going to come down to 2 games. You got BYU week 2 in Provo, and then towards the end of the year, you got Texas Tech in Lubbock. I believe it's our 3rd to last game, if I'm not correct. Those 2 are going to be the big ones, because you know what? We don't play Houston this year. Houston kind of beat us in a, little bit of a sneaky game after BYU. We were kind of coming off a big loss. We kind of started to lose our confidence a little bit, regained it back towards the end of the season, but Houston kind of caught us by surprise. We don't have those games this year. It's a lot of Iowa State, a lot of Kansas, a lot of Kansas State, a lot of these really rebuilding teams in the Big 12. I don't see them being a huge problem. I mean, we've got good tight ends coming in. We got Cole Rusk out of Illinois, and while I think he's had some injuries, in the past couple of years, I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. I think ultimately it is just going to be those 2 games. I think if we can really, rip victory out of the jaws of defeat for one of those, I don't expect us to win either, to be totally honest with you, just because of the talent gap present in those programs right now, between us and, BYU and Texas Tech. But I think we're right there. I think if we can just grab one of those off the schedule and, have our Big 12 championship game versus Texas Tech, which is, cross your fingers, that's really what you're hoping for here in Tucson. I could see potential if we just, even if we lose to Texas Tech during the season, even if Sorsby has a great game in Lubbock, really makes a show of us, we have a really hard time defensively. We've lost, Genesis Smith, freshman out of the free safety spot, or I believe actually a sophomore, excuse me. But he was just an amazing presence and unfortunately opted out before that bowl game. He's moving on, I believe, to the pros. Excited for him, wish him well. But ultimately, you know what? If we can just get to that Big 12 championship game, I believe Fafita will show the maturity and poise as a leader, along with, some major improvements from Brennan, especially bringing in a good defensive coordinator in Danny Gonzalez. He was excellent last year. He's become a household name in Tucson. I really see potential for some big movement in the Big 12, and coming from Tucson, bear down.
Hey, my drop on Arizona. He had a lot to say in his heart about Arizona, ladies and gentlemen.
I did. I love him.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's good. First thing that I want to see from my spring outlook is the quarterback. I'm just joking. I was going to say quarterback battle. No, Noah Fafita is the guy. There's no disputing. Noah Fafita is the guy. Number one,
he's the guy.
I did, as you mentioned, running backs. Ismail Mahdi gone. No longer there at running back. Kedrick Riscado is back. He's coming there. And I think there's him, but there's also Quincy Craig as well.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Kedrick will probably be the primary back, but I still am like, okay, is it going to be him or Quincy Craig? So I think that's really one for me, the primary back situation. I want to see who's going to take the most reps out of those two. Probably Kedrick, most likely. I could favor him as well, yes. But Quincy Craig, I don't want to count him out just yet either. So that's number one for me. Number two, I think offensive lineman. I mean, slightly bolstered by Tristan Bounds coming back.
Yep.
Curious to see how the O-line is going to hold up as well, though. I mean, they did have some losses. So
yeah, they did.
I think some losses there. I do want to see how they're going to be bolstered up in the spring heading into the fall, just replacing some of those key starters that they lost, right? So that's number two for me. Number three is the defense, right? I think the defense is in sort of a rebuild. I think the defense took majority of the hit.
Yeah,
the offense. So I want to see the rebuild of the defense. How is it going to be shaped and molded in the spring, heading into the fall? They did lose a lot defensively in key areas, especially. I would think a little bit on the defensive line, not too much like the other spots, but some on the defensive line as well. Just overall defensively, I want to see how well they are going to be. And how they're going to retool the defense in the spring heading into the fall. So that's really my spring outlook on Arizona. Primary back, number one, is it going to be Kendrick? Is it going to be Quincy Craig? Number two, I would say the offensive line gap and how they kind of bolster up the offensive line and retool the offensive line again, and retooling the defense. Who obviously they lost a lot on defense. I want to see how they retool it in the spring, heading in to the fall. Now, their spring game is April 25th, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen there. We'll have our spring results on them in a few weeks, but my final thoughts on Arizona really quick, and for me, and you can disagree or agree with me on this. While they did lose a lot to the draft, they did have some additions to the portal, and I think they didn't lose a lot through the portal, which is pretty good. Yeah. So they're, in a way, they are still in good enough shape. While they did lose some pieces roster turnover wise, and they're kind of navigating that, which I kind of want to see during the spring how they navigate that. They aren't really in totally bad shape. They're in good enough shape to try to make a slight run, maybe, right?
Yeah, possibly.
So, is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think ultimately, you even touched on the losses on the defensive side of the ball. That's not even really talking about, the cornerback position, losing, Traden Stukes and Marquise Groves-Killebrew. Those guys are two real biggest pieces, in that secondary, not including, Genesis Smith, obviously best guy on that secondary, but those were two really helpful guys. That secondary is going to be a big rebuild. But you know what? Again, I think you're right. A lot of it is going to be the offensive line. I would say, the receiving core is something to pay attention to as well. We do seem to have a lot of good young guys in the receiving core, so I'm not like we've got Geno Richardson, I believe, is one of them that I'm really, really liking so far. He was great last year, especially towards the end of the year in that Colorado game. He was fantastic. But I think looking at the offensive line with Arizona is always just kind of flip a coin. You know, it depends on the year, it depends on the roster, it depends on the leadership. I think Brennan, so far, it looks like it's trending upward. It looks like he really has gone for, you know, guys that are kind of deeper in the portal. He's gone more for cohesion. He likes to keep his guys. He likes to keep his roster together. He doesn't really go for the big swings, not really in the portal. He's a little bit more closely aligned with like Dabo Swinney. He kind of just goes for the guys that nobody else is looking at, the undervalued assets, which I really do appreciate about him. But I think still you're going to need some big splashes in the Big 12 with, you know, Braden Sorsby coming to Texas Tech. They are just loaded top to bottom. The oral money never stops. It will never, you know, unfloweth. The old money is just going to keep coming, and you guys better watch out. Texas Tech is just on the rise, and I think those, you know, those Utah schools, they've been fantastic for, you know, about half a decade now. I highly doubt that stops this year. I think Arizona really needs to solidify the cohesion they got, and I think if they can even just make an appearance, put themselves on the map, even if it's, you know what, you're the obligatory, we'll throw them in from the Big 12. You know what, Texas Tech makes a huge run this year, undefeated, and they're like, okay, we can make room for a second Big 12 team, which I do think is highly possible. If you can just make it in, that is the separator in the Big 12. That is the big move. That's the thing you need in order to really make yourself a destination for portal players, and I think Arizona just needs to take that step this year.
Absolutely. Mic drop for Arizona, guys. Their spring game is April 25th, and we are going to get our spring results on them within the next few weeks. Man,
Yep.
That was Vanderbilt, Virginia, Iowa, and Arizona spring outlooks. Can they keep the momentum going? We will just have to see throughout the spring and heading into the fall, and we'll do our spring results on them within the next few weeks. Man, Trent, it's been awesome. I appreciate you getting on our final spring outlook for the 2026 spring football season. Spring results are coming up next week. Guys, we're out of time. So thank you for joining us. And if you want to just taking a sit back and just listening to our spring football coverage, just presented by us. Guys, for watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, just share around with others and follow on there as well. Catch us on True Voice Digital each and every Tuesday and Thursday. Just keep on clicking. Just all you got to do is just Google it. Search engine, truevoicedigital.com. You'll find each, whatever show you like on there. That is faith-inspired and unfiltered analysis, especially from us as well. So True Voice Digital, catch us on there. X, Instagram, and TikTok at pigskin_frenzy. Follow like the pages there. The website is www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com for all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, we're about to be at a big number here on YouTube, so we're celebratory, golf clap. About to be at 100,000 views on YouTube for Pigskin Frenzy. We're pumped, we're fired up, about to hit that mark. We're at 7,000 listeners, about to be at 7,100 listeners on all audio platforms. Guys, huge thank you for you guys tuning in each and every Tuesday and Thursday. Not only that, we cannot do this with our show without our Lord and Savior Jesus. We give him all the glory and all the praise. We are so thankful to be in college football media because of him. We are fulfilling our dreams because of him, and we get to increase his name and decrease ours through this. So we're so thankful for that. And guys, I just wanted to say this really quick before we log off. Have a great Easter weekend, because Easter is coming. Just remember the reason for the season of Easter. It's not about, having nice Easter chocolate and candy's great, and Easter baskets, the Easter egg hunts, those are all fun, nice and fun. But the reason of the season is our Lord and Savior Jesus. He died on Friday and rose again on Sunday so that we can all spend eternity in heaven with him. So it is the ultimate sacrifice. He gave his life for us so that we don't have to spend eternity away from him. We can spend eternity in heaven with him forever. So we love him. We give him all the glory and praise. Just remember the reason of the season for Easter. And we hope everybody has a great Easter weekend. We love him. We praise him. We're so thankful for you guys as well. We'll be back on Tuesday with our spring results. Alabama, LSU, Clemson, and Florida State on tap once again for our 2026 spring results. We start our second half and second phase of our spring football season then. So until Tuesday, I'm Joel Norris. That's Reoccurring guest correspondent Trent Ritchie. Guys, have a great Easter weekend. For everybody out there, we'll see you Tuesday. Please and always stay the course.